Boom.
Welcome back. Neil, guess what?
Yep.
Show number 10,000.
600 in the lot.
600 and a lot. We lost count?
Yeah.
So the good news, everybody, we lost count. We do not know how many shows we've done. It's past 600, close to 700. We'll figure that out. But welcome back to the Off the Lip Radio Show tonight. We got a great show. We're live from the Santa Cruz Boardroom right here in Pleasure Point, California. Not a good surf day today, but the weather is beautiful. So I hope where you are, the weather is beautiful too.
People catching fish out there, though.
Big fishing.
Right?
Yeah.
What's
Yeah.
Adder catch today?
I don't know, halibut. And I think, Adam, if you're watching, I'll come help you fillet that halibut in a little bit. So he yelled me, like, what do I do with it? And I'm like, well, I'll be over to show you.
Flay the damn thing.
Look what we got over here.
We got the chief.
Is that the brass? That is called brass, right?
Yeah, they call it brass.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we got the brass here tonight, everybody.
Yeah. There's a lot of chiefs here lately.
Jason Nee, the new fire chief of Central Fire right here in Santa Cruz County is here. Welcome to the show, Jason. I appreciate you being here. And you are a resident of Santa Cruz for a long time.
Yeah, that's right. That's an excellent point. I moved to Santa Cruz probably 1987, just before the earthquake.
Okay.
Moved from Boise, Idaho, and been here ever since. So yeah, I've been a longtime resident of Santa Cruz County, and not only am I a resident of Santa Cruz County, but I'm promoted within our organization to be essentially the second fire chief to be promoted within our organization. As far as I can remember, like back in the day before we had done all the mergers and whatnot, we had internal fire chiefs, but in our contemporary times, the second fire chief of Central Fire.
And you guys just merged right, a couple of years ago, right? Was Aptos? Can you tell us who's who in the
Who's who
Santa
in the
Cruz-
zoo?
Yeah,
Yeah.
who's who in the zoo? Yeah.
Yeah. So there were 5 original agencies: Live Oak, Capitola, Soquel, Aptos, and La Selva Beach. Those were the original 5. And in the 80s, between 84 and 87, essentially Live Oak, Capitola, and Soquel had merged to become what we call Central Fire. And Aptos and La Selva had merged to become what was called Aptos and La Selva. And then for 34 years, it remained those two organizations. So 4 stations was in Central, which is Capitola, Live Oak, and Soquel, and then 3 stations that covered Aptos and La Selva Beach. So for 34 years, nothing changed.
Right.
And there was study after study, and everybody said we should continue to merge, but it never
Are
happened.
they trying to merge to save money?
There's a number of reasons to merge,
Okay.
and one of them is you can save money because you don't have to have the same amount of administration, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
There's also purchasing power that you gain because you're buying so many more of what the widgets or radios or
And
whatever.
you want to talk about that, TC? Remember about the boats?
Oh, well, my brother? Well, no, my brother was
We're going to get sidebar right here.
No, but well, we were talking about the new engines that you have. I mean, you guys have some beautiful new equipment. And my brother was a firefighter for Standard Oil Refinery. And after 9/11, they got grants for boats. And they didn't really need boats, but they were told that if you don't get the boats now, you can't get boats in the future.
So we might as well get a boat.
So they got a boat with a big machine gun on the front. But I have noticed you got some beautiful new engines with new paint colors too.
Yeah, you recognize that scheme.
Black.
Yeah, and we darkened them up a little bit. Was that planned?
Yeah, so it was planned to kind of change and rebrand. So we have a similar name, Central Fire District instead of Central Fire Protection District. But we've changed the logos. We've changed a lot of the kind of the branding and you guys know all about branding. So we've changed some of the branding for the organization, and one of those pieces was the apparatus. So we've 2 of the fire engines. They're from a manufacturer called Rosenbauer, and 1 ladder truck. It's the giant ladder with the bucket on the front.
Yeah.
They all have the same paint scheme, and then moving on forward, that'll be the kind of scheme that we go with. Historically, Aptos La Selva used to have yellow fire engines. Probably about, let's say 10 years ago, they transitioned back to red, and then Central had a certain paint scheme that they had used, and now we're moving forward with this.
Where do the old fire trucks go?
Where do they go?
Yeah, where do they end up? They end up like in a...
Oh, when you get rid of them?
Yeah,
You
they end up in
surplus?
Arizona on some...
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
like the planes do, you know?
Auction.
Yeah.
They go to auction.
Yeah, that's a great point. There are actual companies that sometimes we contract with them when we're looking for a used piece of equipment, but they'll buy all your surplus equipment, and so there's actually quite a market for it. And For organizations, a full-time organization like ours, we generally will buy new equipment. Sometimes we'll buy demo equipment that they haven't been first line. They just drive them around for shows. But a lot of other organizations will buy used equipment because the price is
Astounding.
enormous.
Right.
Yeah. So a regular fire engine that you see driving around without the ladder on the top is probably between $800,000 to $950,000.
Right. Okay.
And what's crazy about that is I race cars at Watsonville Speedway, and across the country there's a real trend to get those, take the box off, and make it a race car trailer because they're so maintained. You know, because the maintenance on these things impeccable.
And then you got the diesel, you drive it all over.
Then it has like 55,000 miles on it or something because you just drive in like an 8-block circle usually.
Yeah, so we surplus them, and then sometimes our neighbors, some of our neighboring agencies, some of the volunteer agencies are interested in buying some of our used equipment because you're right, like you said, we do a good job of maintaining them.
Is there enough? Do you have enough right now? Is there a need for equipment or a need to upgrade equipment?
Yeah, so it's a great question, and you know, it kind of, just like the economy, it kind of ebbs and flows. And so Central Fire, we get our revenue from basically your property tax. And so if you live in our district, some of your property tax goes to your fire protection. So Central Fire has sufficient funds. We have fund balances. We're able to carry over money, and we don't have to borrow a bunch of money generally. And we've done a really good job of planning. And so what we do is we take all of the apparatus. We say we want to use them 10 years frontline and another 10 years in reserve because you have to have extras in case something breaks or whatever. You still have to be able to respond. And then we take that amount of money that we know we have to get for each piece of equipment, and then we say, okay, if we want to replace this in 20 years, how much money do we need to save now? So we do that with all of our apparatus. So, but we could always use new apparatus.
Right.
The tricky thing, like I was saying about the cost, is there's also, just like everybody is dealing, and I'm sure you guys do here at the boardroom too, just like there's delays in receiving product. It used to take about a year to get a piece of apparatus made. It's taken over 23 months by the time that you place your order till the time you're receiving it.
Right.
Well, and I'm sure, I mean, I know from my business, I used to get price increases like every 12 months.
Yeah.
I'm getting price increases like every 3 months right now. So you could order an engine. It would probably be more money by the time you take delivery.
Exactly.
Bullet train type stuff.
Can I talk about daily life at the fire station?
Daily life, yeah, of course.
How's that work? I mean, for people watching, like, how's that work? Is it 4 on and 4 off, or how's daily life there at the station?
Yeah,
like the one on 7th Avenue over here.
Yeah, so that's one of our stations. We have 7 stations, 10 facilities. The one you're talking about is on 17th Avenue, across from Simpkins.
The main, that's your main, right?
That's where our headquarters is, and our administrative. That's where I go every day.
Your desk is there.
Exactly.
Got it.
Exactly. So daily life in the firehouse. So we work 48 hours on and then 4 days off in a row. So we have 3 shifts, they call it A, B, and C. And you show up at 7 o'clock in the morning on the start of your shift, and you don't go home for 48 hours later. So in the firehouse, there's bathrooms, workout rooms, kitchens, TV rooms, computers, all the normal stuff that you would have in your residence. Right. There's just like 3 times. So A shift has, like I'm A shift, I've got a refrigerator. B shift has a refrigerator. C shift has a refrigerator. Right. And certainly there's no borrowing of other people's stuff. Right.
Fighting words.
So, and so the daily life is in the mornings generally they'll check out the rigs, make sure the equipment's all good to go, nothing's been forgotten or broken in between, and then there's usually time in the morning to exercise, and then there's daily stuff that the crews need to take care of, either equipment maintenance or making sure that all the equipment is working and running in good order. They call them a weekly check, so they'll go through one piece of apparatus like every day and make sure it's 100% ready to go. And then they start running calls, and there's other stuff like cleaning the station and et cetera, et cetera. We have a very, very robust training division is what we call it, and they're really busy keeping up to date on all our skills.
If TC and I dial 911, you guys are the first on the scene, is that correct? Before an ambulance or before a police car shows up?
So, generally speaking, fire departments are distributed throughout a community so that they can get to your house quickly in the case that your house is on fire. Law enforcement tends to be roving a little bit more, so they're not necessarily, they have beats or general areas, but they can be kind of anywhere within that beat. And then,
But I'm going to contest that, though. I'm contesting that.
yeah, go ahead.
Because you guys do more surf checks than anybody I know.
That's their beat.
I'm just kidding.
We call
I'm only
it
kidding.
we call it coastal access awareness.
Coastal access awareness.
Well, and let's be, and I'm going to rope this back in.
Yeah.
Every surf rescue I've seen in Pleasure Point, there's been a central engine there.
Right.
Yeah. You respond every time. And I want to jump ahead a little bit with that comment to say, do you guys go in the water during those rescues, or is that lifeguard and harbor patrol?
Yeah, it's a great point. So we have 30 rescue swimmers, and they're on the apparatus. So we don't have necessarily lifeguards guarding the towers like state parks or the city of Santa Cruz or city of Capitola. So our folks are engine based. We have 30 throughout our entire district. We've also got 2 jet skis in the harbor, one at a time. We've got one in a backup. And so with state, we'll usually, when you talk about Pleasure Point, we'll usually respond with state parks and then our folks. And we usually get at least 2 coming to the scene, so there's a backup. And then, yeah, you're right. We'll pull 12 people out of there an evening. Generally, it's high tide with swell at night. People can't get in,
And that's a big increase over the years, Neil.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because
nowadays you've got people out there who don't know what they're doing.
I think Costco should subsidize you guys
with the wave storms.
Yeah, because I swear they're just putting people out there to get rescued constantly.
Yeah, we see a lot of wave storms.
I'm sure.
So coastal access awareness is what we call as part of training.
And awareness.
They're keeping they're making sure they know the shortcuts. You know,
I want to know if there's like a post or something like a chalkboard. Who does the surf check, coastal awareness, access awareness the most?
Yeah. So the interesting part about that is our rescue swimmers are spread throughout the district, and so they need to be aware of what's going on, and so different folks might be coming through to make sure everything is safe and sound.
that's why we see a lot of fire at the beach.
Exactly. That's why because we're making sure that the community's safe.
Right.
I like that.
Of course, the fires. We've got to talk about the fires that happened a couple of years ago. The
CZU
fire,
complex,
and then how have things changed since that happened?
Yeah, that was a really trying time for this community. So what has really changed I'll speak for Central. CAL FIRE has obviously had a bunch of stuff that they've done. You know, all the fire agencies have. But for Central Fire, one of the things we've really been focusing on is helping our community become more fire aware, prepare their residents in the event of fire, and then we've really tried to do it on a community-based level. So, and we've hired, we call them Defensible Space inspectors, and they'll come out to people in the rural, we call it the WUI, or Wildland Urban Interface, so everything's got an acronym.
Right.
So we send our folks out there, and they help to teach and show homeowners what they can do to make their properties more safe. Because really, that's what if you leave it to a government agency to come out and knock down your weeds, like, you're going to be waiting for a while. And so we're trying to empower our community to create groups that can pool their resources and do it together, and we've had a lot of success with that.
Are you guys involved? Are you guys involved in the permit process as far as what's being built on the new homes that are being put up there?
In the CZU burn scar?
And it's a slow process, but these people are like, it's a slow process.
Yeah.
If you guys are involved in that at all?
Not directly, because that's generally Boulder Creek, CAL FIRE, or those other agencies.
Okay.
So we're not, but we are paying attention to it. But they don't come to us to answer questions and help them out. No.
Well, I was going to say, because getting back to the fire danger in homes, there's some roads you literally cannot get up.
Yeah.
To respond to a fire.
Yeah.
And that seems to me those are the people who really need that coaching.
Yeah, and oftentimes those we call those roads existing, so they exist already and they're non-conforming. Like, we wouldn't allow that road to be built today because the access, the egress, and then typically what happens is they get a lot of growth over the top of them. And there are some roads in Central's district, up in the hills in SoCal and above Aptos, that are really just, if we stopped our apparatus to go out and run a medical aid on this road, like, nobody's getting by for 20, 30 minutes.
Or you can't make a U-turn to get out.
Yeah, that's the other part. So oftentimes we have to back out of some of those roads, and that's tenuous as well.
How young were you when you wanted to have the dream of being a fireman?
Oh, that's a good question. I think I was in college, so what is that, 20, 21, 22? Mm-hmm. I did a ride-along with a family friend. A ride-along is where you're a civilian and you just hang out for the day. With a family friend at San Jose Station No. 1 downtown, and we just run the wheels off the truck. We were super busy, and I was like, oh, this is what I'm going to do.
Right.
And so I finished school, and then that's kind of what I put my mind to. And I ended up, so there's generally, not always, but generally there's a little bit of a lag between the time that you start preparing for a career in the fire service, start taking classes, etc., and the time you get hired. So I got hired full time when I was 25.
What's the hardest part about your job?
Now?
Yep.
Oh.
Or if it
Being a boss.
Yeah, the administration and management is really hard for me because it's just hard for anybody, I think. But coming from the line and being really focused on getting stuff done and then like having that job done is a lot different than management when there's so many things going on at once.
Right.
And you when you complete something, it's like, oh, well, great, I completed it, but I still have another 25.
Are you a fireman anymore, or are you the guy behind the desk?
Generally, I'm behind a desk.
Yeah.
Mostly it's computer now, as
Right.
you know. You were
Right.
sending emails and answering phone calls.
Because Boney said, as much as he's a police chief, he's also now become a politician.
Yeah.
So is that what's going
A
on
lobbyist.
with you? Huh?
Yeah.
I remember I called him a lobbyist.
Yeah, is that
Yeah.
what you're doing now?
Yeah, really, that's what the chief's positions are really kind of like more figurehead, not necessarily on the lines. Like Bernie is not arresting people in this downtown Santa Cruz. He's, like you said, politicking for more money, more finances, more people, more
Right,
whatever
right,
for their
right.
city and more resources and everything that goes with that. And it's similar to what I'm doing. I'll respond to fires, but mostly it's in an overhead supervisory position. And generally by the time I get there, they've got things pretty wrapped up.
Well, when we had Andy Mills on the show, he said the hardest thing was the HR department part of it.
Yeah, HR is a challenging piece for sure in public safety and just in general, just how fast things are changing with what's acceptable and what's not. Because, I'll be honest, what's acceptable in the firehouse when I started 20-something years ago and what's acceptable now are like two totally different things.
Right,
which is,
right.
It's better, but like it changes fast and change isn't always fast in the fire service in that regard.
Well, earlier we were talking to somebody.
Yeah.
Let's segue to this.
That's-
And she said, what'd she say?
She said, how
How
many
many
women
women
are in the force?
Yeah, how many women are in the force? And she goes, I was like, I don't know.
At Central Fire?
Yeah.
Yeah, so full-time firefighting women, I think we have 4 off the top of my head. And then we also have we call it a paid call, or essentially like a reserve program. And I think I want to say there's 2 more women in that. We just hired a group, and I can't remember exactly. So
And paid call is those hoping to make
exactly,
the team, right?
yeah. So they have a pager. When the pager goes off, they respond in, and they help us backfill when there's a larger incident. Exactly.
Yeah, you guys good.
Well, we just finished one of the biggest holidays of the year, 4th of July.
Yeah.
Normally,
Oh, yeah.
you guys are
Super busy.
the phone's ringing. How
Yeah.
was it last night?
Yeah, so today's the 5th. Everybody's recovering for what they anticipated. So I talked to Chief Rob Odie from the city of Santa Cruz, and then I compared it to what we did last night. And it sounded like Santa Cruz County was generally, for the most part, pretty tame compared to what we've seen in the past. There's
Right.
been I used to love working 4th of July, by the way, just because you're going from incident to incident, roof fire to grass fire to whatever, and it's super fun. As long as everybody is safe.
Right.
But Chief Odie said that City of Santa Cruz was generally tame last night. Central Fire was generally tame. I think a lot of it had to do with the weather. Maybe perhaps it was on a Monday instead of on the weekend. Watsonville, I was listening to the radio late last night, and they were pretty busy. They still had a lot of stuff going on, but fireworks are still technically safe and sane. Fireworks are technically still legal in the city of Watsonville. Maybe that had something to do with it. Could have just been they just had a lot of.
Can I ask a question about the CZU fire one more time? One more thing about the CZU fire is if you guys are everyone's charging up there to take care of that fire up there, who stays home to take care of what may be happening here in town?
Yeah.
Or is it you send everyone up there, or is there a percentage of people go up there?
Yeah, so it's a great question, and you're actually talking to the right person for the CZU. I happen to be the battalion chief on duty. The battalion chief is essentially the person in charge of the 7 stations for that day. I was the battalion chief the day that the CZU really broke and blew up. There had been, if you remember, there was a bunch of lightning.
I was my old house was on above the cement ship. I'm like,
It was incredible.
It was
This is
crazy.
not
Yeah,
gonna be
crazy
good.
lightning. Yeah.
This is not gonna.
There's been lightning storms like that before, but last time I remember it was like out over the coast, and
Right.
never came on
No,
shore.
right,
This
right.
was like out of this world. So, and I don't remember how many. It was like 1,200 strikes in 12 hours
Right.
or whatever it was. So, generally what we like to do is we like to send as many people as we can to the incident to help keep it small. And so Central, I think we sent, out of our 7 stations, I think we sent 4 right away. Then we started calling back our membership. Our membership came in, filled back up more stations, and I think we ended up sending maybe another 2 that same night. And so it was, 6 of our 7 stations were essentially out, but we had enough folks to come back and backfill our
Yeah.
equipment. What they don't want to create is like a giant black hole, so that if there's another incident within the area, that there's nobody to respond. So they kind of try to take a couple from here, a couple from here.
Right, right.
Does Cal Fire call in the because we had amazing Los Angeles firefighters here, and a bunch of them were skateboarders when they were younger.
When they were staying at CZU?
yeah, and we had 4 or 5 LA County trucks here.
Yeah.
And the great dudes, and I was so happy they came and helped. But is that Cal Fire who calls in those people?
Yeah, it's called Cal OES, or Office of Emergency Services. And so if there's a statewide movement of equipment, those are the folks that do it. They're not necessarily Cal Fire, but Cal Fire will put in the request. It goes to Cal OES, and then they move all the people up and down the state.
Do you get calls from that during other big fires in the state where you guys will load up
Yeah.
a truck or 2? and-
Exactly, yeah. So last summer, for example, we went out. It was a bunch of fires in the Sierra.
Oh, right.
We were out for like 90 days in a row. So
Right.
yeah, we leave the area regularly. Generally, we like to go with 5 other pieces of equipment from this county, but it's not all.
Who determines who goes? Do you make that call?
No, which actual person or what
Yeah.
agency?
No, in within the central.
Oh,
who
yeah.
makes that call?
Yeah, we try to set it up ahead of time every day, so it's not a surprise who's going, because we've had that where people are like, well, I don't want to go, this guy want to go.
My
So-
wife's pregnant.
Yeah, exactly. So we try to make accommodations for that. You set that up ahead of time, so 7:30 every morning or about, everybody knows who's going that day.
Who stays on the front line? Who stays on the front line? How long are they there for?
So generally, like when we went to the Sierras this last summer, we did 90-something days straight. And we rotate on every 14 days. So you and I would go out for 14 days, and then you and your partners would come and relieve us after day 14.
That's a long stint.
Yeah, it's a lot of sleeping in the dirt.
Yeah.
Eating camp food.
And rough on the equipment too.
Yeah, we tend to break a lot
Wear
of
it
stuff
out.
when they're out there too. They have mechanics that will fix your stuff if you break it on the incident. But yeah, there's a lot of wear and tear on those.
Have you ever been in one of the converted airliners that drops the?
Oh yeah, I've only seen them on the videos.
Have you ever been in one?
Never been in
No,
one.
okay. No.
I've been in the Copter 106. Used to be over off of Highway 17.
Yeah.
I've been in that and done some stuff with them, and that's super cool in the
Yeah.
helicopters.
Yeah.
But never in a tanker.
Is that gone now?
Yeah, I think they moved. They were looking to get. Oh man, I'm totally gonna mess this up. But I think they were looking to get some surplus Blackhawks for Cal Fire, and they were gonna get those retrofitted, and they can't land at the one on 17.
Too big.
I think
Yeah.
it was build a house there, didn't they?
No, they built a house there, but the owner of the house allowed the fire department to
Oh,
stay
wow.
when he bought the property.
Yeah, the Copter 106 is an older rig, and it can land at that little helipad.
Yeah.
I think they're moving. I forget where they said they were moving, but it's too big of a helicopter.
Over on 17th Avenue, there's a big red semi-trailer on the side of the fire.
Oh,
What-
yeah.
And I always is that a training thing or
Yeah.
something? What is that?
It's moved. They were lending it to the city of Santa Cruz. They've got it at one of their facilities, and it's called a burn trailer, and it burns propane. So we fill it with propane gas. We've got big tanks in there, and it'll mimic like when fire flashes over the top. It'll mimic couch fires and kitchen fires. It's got a second story that you can make access
lifts
to.
up or
Yep,
something?
exactly.
Yeah.
And then, so we got that. Central Fire got that in a grant. Probably 15,
Right.
maybe 20 years ago,
Right.
and then we're lending it out. It's on our extra property there on 17th Avenue. Yeah.
Okay, I always wondered.
Yeah.
Is there a race car in there? What's going on?
Yeah. It looks like a
Looks like a
race
race
car.
As the new chief, was that something you wish? What's your goals and your end game? What do you want to change? Is there anything you want to change?
So, yeah, there's a handful of things. And so to get back to one of your original questions about the merger, so we
Yeah.
we finished the merger in February 4th of 2021. So
And that was a big deal, wasn't it?
yeah, it took a lot of work.
Right.
There's a ton of work to go into that, both politically between the local union folks coming together and the board. That Aptos LaSelva had a board of directors, Central had a board of directors. They got to figure out who's doing what and who's leaving and who's staying. So it was a lot of work, because Aptos was getting paid X amount of money, Central Fire were getting paid X amount of money, and we had to figure out how
They had to blend.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and it's gone famously. It's gone way better than we imagined it could have. So, I forgot what your question was.
The merger.
Oh yeah. So we merged in 2021, and as a result, we were trying to figure out kind of what's next because we knew kind of what we want to do when we're a 4-station department. We knew what we wanted to do when we were a 3-station department. But what do we look like now that we're 7 stations? Where are the stations in the most appropriate place? Do we have the equipment in the most appropriate place for how we want to use it? And so really what we're planning on, or what we're doing now, is our planning process. So we're trying to figure out what's the most appropriate way to use the amount of money that we have annually, and figure out how we're gonna do this as a new 7-station organization.
What can homeowners do, or even renters for that matter, do to protect their homes? Is there a website that you guys have, or can they call you, or how can people find out how they can take care of the homes, especially now coming up with obviously the fire season?
Yeah, and there was just a big fire yesterday. What was that? 4th of July that broke up outside of Yuba area, or by Jackson actually.
Yeah.
It was like 1,000 acres in 2 hours or something. It was really moving. So probably the best thing. So Cal Fire is like the experts within the state. Like they literally are the expert. Oh, there goes the engine now.
Hey.
So they have what's called defensible space, and they like to have it about 100 feet from your home, or for whatever piece of building that you want to save. You want to have 100-foot essentially clearance to where vegetation starts or stops and to your home.
Right.
And they have all different ideas and theories, and whether you're uphill or downhill, or if they're shaded, or they have got all kinds of stuff. So Cal Fire is a really good resource. We, Central Fire, if you call our community risk reduction division, they'll send the defensible space inspector out, and they'll come give you tips on your property with your stuff and show you how to make it safe. And
Is there a charge for that?
No, we do it. It's voluntary. You don't have to take what we say and
Right.
apply it. It's just
It's
a
expert opinion.
Exactly. And most of those folks generally have years and years of experience working for Cal Fire. Now they're doing it for us just as a part-time gig.
Yeah.
And then there's also the Santa Cruz Fire Safe Council, which is essentially a conglomerate of like-minded folks who are trying to make the wildlands urban interface safe for their communities. So that's a really good resource as well, the Fire Safe Council.
What's in your memory? The memory of the fire that took place that is embedded in your mind.
Yeah, there's a couple. Most of them have to do with fatalities, unfortunately, just because that's like, you don't see that every day. You don't go to fires every day either, but like most of them have to do with fatalities. And then there was a fatality in Live Oak that I went to. This poor woman, she lit herself on fire in a shed, and that was terrible.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, and then one time
I was actually involved in that.
Oh,
You
yeah.
were? It was a friend of mine.
Oh yeah, it's so sad. And then there was another one, and this is just like a kind of a good learning piece. I was pretty new. The fire was over kind of behind Aptos Barbecue in Aptos Village area, and there was a gentleman whose house caught on fire, and he had run out of the neighbors had seen him run out, and he kept running back in to get more stuff. And he was out and he was safe, but he kept going back in, and eventually, he kept doing it so many times, eventually the roof collapsed on him, the gentleman lost his life. And it's like, once you're out, like, just
stay out.
Stuff's not that important. Is that the message?
Well, I mean,
right?
yeah,
that's probably as a professional firefighter.
Yeah, like,
stuff's not that important.
it can be replaced.
Is there a rescue? Is there a rescue you did that comes to mind?
In a fire?
Oh, just in general.
Oh,
yeah.
in general?
Yeah. Or
Probably the first one that we go to water rescues, and all those, are can be harrowing because the stuff that we send our rescue swimmers into is pretty dramatic. And I wasn't a rescue swimmer because I saw some of the stuff.
Well, it's always a massive high tide and tons of
yeah,
swell.
and I heard people are starfished on the thing.
It's crazy. Yeah.
So probably one of the rescues that I remember the most is we had a gentleman who was driving a forklift on Soquel Avenue, and he over by Ewing sprinklers.
Yeah.
And this forklift drove off the road, and he tried to jump off the forklift at the same time, and his legs got stuck on the tines of the forklift, and we had to pull that forklift off of them. His leg was pretty badly messed up, and so. But I do hear that this gentleman's still walking around, and
That's cool.
I believe he still has both of his legs. I think he was pretty messed up.
You guys pretty much see everything.
We see a lot, and that's a hard part of the job that like they don't tell you when you're coming in, like
The guy who falls in the wood chipper.
yeah, like that kind of stuff. Like there's no way.
That's a true story.
There's no way to prepare for that. I used to work on the ambulance when I was working for the fire department at the same time, and I would work on the ambulance part-time. And there was a story about a gentleman who fell face first into his septic tank, and unfortunately the guy is deceased as a result of it. But stuff like that does happen, yeah. And what I was going to say is they don't prepare you when you get into these kind of jobs of the kind of stuff you're going to see in your career, because a career can be 20, 30 years, and you see a lot of like stuff that you're not supposed to see or you don't normally see. And I was at a conference, and they were talking about active duty military, law enforcement, and fire service. They see on average in their careers over 100 traumatic events, and the normal person sees about 2 to 3 traumatic events in their lifetime. And so in my career, I've seen I don't even know how many, but more than average. And so we deal a lot now. And one of the things you were asking me about before was how kind of things have changed. And dealing with behavioral health is one of the things we're really focusing on, because unfortunately a lot of...
With a therapist.
Yeah, a lot of our folks in the fire service in general, not Central so far, thank goodness, or this county as far as I know, a lot of folks are committing suicide as a result of the behavioral health challenges.
Really?
Yeah, it's super sad.
Right.
Well, I have a friend who's in Central Fire. We talked about him earlier, and when he was on the ambulance, he responded to a head-on collision on Highway 1. And when he got there was a baby that went through the windshield and was on the hood of the car.
Yeah.
And it was probably like at that point in his life the most traumatic thing he saw.
No kidding.
And I don't know how you ever lose that vision, right?
No, yeah.
It's the stuff that you guys see.
I
And sometimes I hear people say, "Oh, firefighters, cushiest job ever. They make all the money." No. You got to see that.
Yeah, there's a cost to it for sure. It's a good job. Don't get me wrong. It's a good job. It's super fun. It's physical. You learn a bunch.
Great benefits package.
There's excellent pension.
Fantastic
and benefits.
retirement. Yeah. And then let's segue to that. You got to ride along. It changed your life. Someone watching the show, does that still exist in Central Fire to do a ride along, or?
Oh, well,
like to do something like that?
Yes and no. I mean, COVID we've kind of stopped all the station visits and all that stuff, and everything's kind of outside. Hopefully, in the near future, once things kind of settle down, because it's kind of surging again now, but once everything kind of settles down, we'd love to start that back up, because it does give a glimpse into what the day in the life of a firefighter, or what that career might look like, because you don't know. Like, you see stuff on TV, which is not a ton like what it's like in real life, because real life smells different and feels different, and you feel differently about it. And then one of the things I really like about ride-alongs is having the ability to bring on young people like I was into this career, because it's not like it was when I got hired. When I would take tests, I took a test for the city of Reno in probably 98, 99, and there was probably, I'm guessing, 5,000 people applying for
Couple jobs.
Yeah, I mean, even if they were hiring, I don't know if they were, but it was like thousands of people everybody competing for 1 or 2 jobs. And we don't have those same numbers. And I think if we could do ride-alongs again, like you were saying, we could inspire more folks to check out this career.
Well, being a firefighter for Central here in Santa Cruz, to me, kind of seems like the cat's meow. Like,
it's a pretty good gig.
It's a pretty. I mean, this Mediterranean weather, the surf checks. I mean, we have great restaurants. The engine we got engine parking behind the boardroom here.
Yeah.
They love Zameen.
They come there all the time.
Yeah, no, I see the boys. Yeah, and so I mean, it seems like that's a great job to be able to stay in this community. And here you are, a local that worked your way up the ranks, and I'm sure that's. Do you like to hire locally? Is that?
Yeah, one of the things that I think is probably one of the biggest strengths that we have is I talked about the paid call program before. So to be a paid call, you have to live in the county, basically. And most folks live around here. And that's probably one of our bigger virtues is having locally grown folks that are tied to the community, that are really serving their community like you're talking about. And it kind of gets back to the CZU fire. When we were able to call back members from our organization, and we had people showing up like 5 minutes later because they knew they had to come back and staff up the stations.
Right.
It's like totally incredible.
Yeah.
And for a lot of the larger organizations in Santa Clara or San Mateo or San Francisco, like most of those folks live here.
Yep.
You know, to be honest, they live here and they
Right.
drive over there to go to work, which is fine, but they don't have the time. I mean, maybe they do, but they're not spending their time
Right, in the
in
community.
the day off in the same community they serve, and
Right.
that's one of the virtues that we really have.
I got a question to you, Steve. I've wanted to ask this for a long time.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Sounds like a good one.
Remember I did CPR on that kid?
Mm-hmm.
So this kid comes, this woman, grandmother drives the kid from Simpkins to KSCO, and the kid was like, it was
Lifeless.
lifeless. And just before that, because I coached at Kirby High School, I did a CPR class, which I didn't want to do because I thought it was a waste of time. But I had to do it because it was to be a coach, you had to do it. So the kid comes in, and the woman's like, this kid was dead, right? So I'm like, and the kid that worked, did anybody know CPR? I'm like, ugh.
Oh, I actually do.
That's the last thing I want to do, right? So I took the kid outside and I performed CPR on the kid. Yeah, but as you was told to as a kid, as I was told to, and the kid starts spewing out shit from the pool and blah 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 blah. I picked the kid up. Long story short, and he's puking on my chest right here. So I'm like, dude, do not die my fucking watch.
Yeah, that would be terrible.
Right? Do not die my watch. Come on, dude. And I hear the ambulance and the fire truck, right, coming down it was dark. I hear the fire truck coming from somewhere,
17th Avenue.
17th
Yeah.
Avenue,
Yeah,
and I
exactly.
could hear it, but it seemed like that hearing it seemed like it took an hour and a
Forever.
half for it to
Yeah.
get there. And then finally it shows up. I'm like, great. So I took the kid, one of the firemen in front of me goes, here. He's like, no. He goes, the baby's fine with you. I'm like, no, dude.
This is not my kid.
Dude, take the kid. No. And then he didn't. He didn't take it. And then the ambulance came, and then they took the kid. But I wonder why that fireman why he said to me, hey, no, the kid's fine with you, and why he didn't take that kid. I've always wanted to ask that.
It's a great question. So probably, and I have to make an assumption because
Yeah.
I wasn't there, but oftentimes we'll see when, especially for kids, because it's really stressful to run calls on kids, like you saw that day.
Right.
Like it's really
Yeah.
it's really stressful. So oftentimes what we see is like essentially what you did when we show up. Somebody's handing you the child, and you're like, no, hold on to the kid. Like let's get a look at it and see what we're doing.
They took his like vital signs. I hang on to the kid,
Yeah.
and there was
Yeah.
fine there, like checking his vital signs. I'm like trying to pass off the kid. Saying, oh, it's good.
Yeah, so when you're holding the kid, it gives them an ability to take a quick assessment, look at the skin signs, look at their
Right.
work of
Okay.
breathing, and see what the kid is looking like, instead of them having to hold the kid and do all that stuff
Yeah.
at the same time. And if the child was breathing when you had the child in your arms,
Yeah.
then at least they're breathing.
Yeah.
If they're breathing, you know they got a heart rate, and by the look of their skin, they'd be able to tell,
Okay.
like, do we need to get to work now, or can we take our time and
Okay.
like
Yeah.
make sure we get this right?
And
So-
because of that, we
We did a CPR clinic.
We had two CPR. We did
Yeah.
60 people. Did CPR clinic right here in the
here?
boardroom.
Yeah, in here. Yeah, we
Oh,
did
that's
6.
cool.
We taught
Yeah.
60 people CPR.
It's
because of that.
Yeah.
Until you have to do it, like you would think, like,
No.
oh, I don't want to have to do that. Like,
And then I'm like, I was the only guy there. Like, I'm like, no, I don't want to do this. You know, I don't want that on my conscience. I'm like,
and it's super simple to do, and you
Yeah.
probably change this kid's life,
I know.
right? Like,
And you know what
Hopefully.
really changed me about that class is you have to do it to the point where you could break a rib.
yeah,
You know, and I think that's the part that people don't realize.
yeah, and it's really weird.
is that you
Yeah,
might
it's
think you're
really
actually
weird.
giving
Really weird.
CPR and you're not, but you have to almost disregard ribs
Yeah.
and be that sort of tough in
Yeah.
CPR.
Yeah, 1.5 to 2. In an adult, it's like 1.5 to 2 inches of depth each compression, so you have to push
Push
pretty
really hard,
And
yeah.
if you're
Short.
sometimes when you get older, your cartilage hardens up, and when you start CPR, that you actually you feel the cracking when you're doing CPR. But on a supple kid like that, it was probably just like kind of bouncing.
springy.
I think I forget. No,
It's a great story, though.
Yeah, at KSCO.
Have you done that? Have you saved a kid's life with CPR?
Saved a
Yeah.
kid's life with CPR. I've done CPR on a child before, but I don't recall if
It was a week after I did the class. It was literally.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh, so it's fresh. What a perfect time for a kid to show up.
Yeah.
You're all,
I'm looking around for someone else.
yeah, someone coming on the camera.
Yeah.
Wow. That's
How long ago was that?
No, it's probably 7 years ago.
Oh, it wasn't that
Yeah,
long
yeah,
ago.
yeah.
Yeah. So, and it was great.
Yeah.
I mean, we had.
Novak here. We had,
like
every
Sean
professional
Dollar, a bunch of the Mavericks
Oh, yeah,
guys
I know
were out
Sean.
here.
Yeah,
It was a really fun event, and potentially in the future, those people will jump in and save a life as
Yeah,
well.
you never know.
And that's probably another thing. Kind of COVID took a lot of that training out.
Yeah, that's become more and more challenging. They're doing a lot of that stuff virtually or whatever, but it's hard to do CPR virtually.
Right.
It's hard.
Well,
But
at SFO, I saw they have like a rubber dummy in the airport, and you could practice CPR.
oh,
on it.
with the correct depth
Yeah,
and
which was
stuff,
kind
yeah.
of cool. I thought that was a pretty neat way to get people to try.
Yeah, and so kind of to your point, I have had a couple of incidents in my career where a bystander or a family member was doing CPR, and one in particular was like right around Christmas, and they found their dad, and the son started CPR, and by the time we got there, we continued CPR. The gentleman ended up making it, and like he would come by the Firehouse every Christmas and leave us cookies and leave us a card and like all that stuff. It was super cool.
Yeah.
And it's super easy to learn.
Yeah,
to be
it's not that
perfectly
hard.
honest. And you don't do breaths anymore. Like
No,
you
that's
all
right.
compression.
do all compression.
Yeah.
So it's super. If you just know the landmarks that you're going for and how fast you're supposed, you're pretty good.
Yeah. So anybody out there, go do it.
I agree. I feel confident knowing it. I feel like I would jump in a situation
Yeah.
and do compressions until you show up, at least to try to keep it.
Yeah.
You could easily save a life just by doing those early compressions.
The other thing is just some basic first aid stuff. Bandaging and splinting and those kinds of things are super basic. Like you can make a huge difference. We had a call in Nicene Marks. I think it was in April. I think it was towards the end of April. This gentleman, he crashed his mountain bike, tore his femoral artery, so it was a significant tear. You don't want to tear any of the arteries. And he was with his buddies, and they put on a makeshift tourniquet out of a mountain bike tube and basically saved the guy's life until our folks in Cal Fire could get up there and help the guy out.
Yeah.
And the guy was at one of our board meetings. We're in the boardroom. We were at one of our board meetings, and he and his buddy showed up to our board meeting and like gave a super inspiring speech. All of our crew members were there. It was really super cool to see him.
Wow.
Well, you guys do a great
Almost
job.
almost a tear moment there.
Yeah,
right?
no, there were some tears shed in the room for
I
sure.
bet.
Yeah, it was totally cool, and everybody was just really. He walked in on his own power. He said he was riding his bike a little bit now again, and it was makes it all worthwhile.
Is there a website? Somebody's watching wants to join the fire department. Is there a website you guys have?
Yeah, that's it's like a plug.
Yeah.
We
hit a plug.
We happen to be recruiting for pay call firefighter, essentially like our very entry level. And I think you have to be 18 years of age, have a driver's license,
be breathing,
preferably a clean record. You know. So and then you have to live within Santa Cruz County.
Okay.
And the website is centralfiresc.org.
Okay, centralfiresc.org.
Yep.
And that clean record is important.
Yeah.
I've known people who've lost their because of not being 100% on top of their life.
Yeah, and because we come in, imagine if somebody came into your home and you wouldn't want to be missing stuff after we left.
Right.
And the fire service has worked really hard for hundreds of years to try to keep that reputation strong, because people call us on their worst days, and they're expecting to be treated with respect. And if stuff is disappearing from your residence when I'm in there, like it's going to submarine the entire fire service. So that's why that part of your record is so
super
important.
Yeah.
Speaking of record, do you train your guys all the time, and do you as the chief become a broken record? As far as these guys do these guys, how much you hammer home everything that they have to do? Is that, or you get somebody who's been in the service for 20 years, you think he doesn't know everything, or he's like become lackadaisical or whatever? But how often are you coaching so they're on their at their top 1%?
That's a great question. So I probably am a broken record, but mostly it's about COVID and masking and distancing and all that stuff, because we're trying to keep our workforce healthy so that we can continue to because if you're out, you can't respond. So we have a robust training division, and so we've got a battalion chief and 2 captains and an administrative analyst that they run training for all of our folks. We've got 120 employees, and so we've got a lot of people that we need to keep sharp. And they're the folks that actually take them to the drill grounds and will help them stay sharp on all their skills. And we do a lot. Like we've talked about water rescue.
Right.
We've talked a little bit about rescue. We've got confined space rescue, trench rescue. We've got all kinds of rescue
Cliff
stuff.
rescue.
Yeah, you've seen us off picking up people off the perch and stuff with the ladder truck.
Right.
So we have a very wide variety of things that we have to do, and so it takes a lot of, plus the EMS stuff like we talked about. So
And is everybody an EMT now? Is that the deal?
yeah, EMT is the minimum, and then paramedic is kind of where it's probably the fastest way to the fire service. Is being
And do you partner with the sheriff, CHP, Santa Cruz PD, and the other police departments in the area?
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that. We're we got the Wharf to Wharf coming up.
Yeah.
They're going to come running
Right
right by here.
yeah.
And we're going to be working with them. You guys saw what happened in Chicago yesterday at the 4th of July parade, and it's just so more and more of those attacks. We're really working with our local law enforcement. So we have been.
Keeping an eye
So
on-
when we go to this Wharf to Wharf piece, that'll be one of the big pieces
Yeah.
that we're looking about is that active attack. It could be a car driving through. It could be who
Yeah.
knows what, or
Yeah, who
IEDs or whatever they.
Yeah.
Are you constantly trained for that kind of stuff now?
We are. We're blessed at Central Fire. We've got some really excellent folks that are really, really into that stuff. We just finished up at Scotts Valley High. We just finished a huge training. Probably 300 cops and another 150 firefighters came through Scotts Valley High, where we practice all this stuff for like 8 days straight. And it was like that day when it was like 100 degrees.
Yeah.
They were up there doing that.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
we've got one gentleman who did tours in Afghanistan, and now he's working for us as a paramedic. And then we've got another gentleman that used to work on the SWAT team as a SWAT medic. And so we work. We're starting to work more and more with law enforcement for those type of events,
Yeah.
and it's really tragic that that's kind of where we're shifting our focus.
You know, I'm
so
doing,
sad, man. It
TC,
really
I'm
is.
doing that those Midtown concerts I do. I stand in the back and I watch look out for who's coming through.
You're
and what's
watching.
Literally, I am.
Yeah.
'Cause you
Isn't it
don't
sad,
know.
though, that we have
It's
to live like
sad.
that now? It's
And
crazy.
just
And when also,
watching-
too, the weapons that they're using for these kinds of assaults do such traumatic damage to the human body.
Yeah,
You know, and so
that
it's-
one in Chicago
it's really sad. So that we, as a country, that's something that we're gonna have to deal with in the future. And unfortunately, you as a professional with 120 employees have to, in reality, you got to plan for that stuff.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate truth. I mean, this county is actually pretty progressive in what we're trying to do. We had folks from Santa Clara and San Mateo come into our training. Gilroy is probably the closest thing that we've had to anything like that. You guys remember the garlic
I was
festival?
there that day.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah, I left like 5 minutes before. My wife actually said we forgot to get the honey, and that's where the fatalities happened in the honey booth. We were 5 minutes away, and she goes, "We forgot our honey," and I was like, "Well, we're all the way over at the other side of the park. Let's just go home."
Yeah, we're going so
yeah,
hot
and we
here,
missed
yeah.
it by 5 minutes. Yeah, it was
So
insane.
we've leaned on them. Their folks have been great. They've come over and shared some of their experiences with us, and we're really doing a pretty good job for as small as this county is, both geographically and the number of responders. We're doing a really good job of trying to get our folks spun up. The other piece that we're looking to law enforcement is trying to help our local schools. Like, how are we going to roll this thing out when it comes to schools? And
Right.
what is a teacher going to do? A lot of our folks have
Right.
spouses that are teachers, and
Right,
so
right.
that's one of the things we're looking to try to advance and work on.
Jason, thank you for coming on the show.
Is that it? That was it?
Well, we can keep talking. It's good stuff, man.
It's past the fence,
I just want to say congrats.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
You worked your way up from what this is not. You earned this, and the fact that you are from the community, I'm sure has earned the respect of your crew and of the community members. And so, thank you for keeping us safe.
Oh, thank
That's
you
the
very
most
much.
important
And
part.
thank you for your service too.
Yeah,
of
it's
course,
because you're who we call when the shit hits the fan, and so that's great. And please continue on. I know you have a great staff. I know a bunch of the guys that are central, and you have a great staff.
Oh, thanks.
You really do.
I really appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity to come on and talk a little bit about Central and the merger and kind of some of the stuff we're doing because, if you call 911, all you care is somebody like the other day or the other year
Yeah.
when You just care that somebody's coming to help.
That's exactly right.
You don't care what the organization or
Nope.
what the patch says or whatever. But for us, we take a lot of pride in our organization.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, they take pride in their job. Your staff has the cleanest vehicles on the
They
planet.
do. It makes me want to go wash my truck.
I gotta go and wash my van right now. Well, and that's pride of the job.
Yeah.
You know, you and your staff take a lot of pride in what they do, and I recognize it, and I'm sure a lot of other people do. So keep up the good work. And is there a contract? Is there a day that are you the chief until you say you don't want to be a chief?
Oh, for my personally,
Yeah.
So I replaced John Walbridge, who you may or may not know. He's from the area as well. He was the new Central Fire's first chief. He lives in Capitola, so he's not far from us here. He retired in May, and I took his job. He retired on the 2nd of May. I took his job May 3rd. So congratulations to John. He did a heck of a job, and got us through the merger and all that stuff.
Right.
And he's enjoying retirement now. I signed a 3-year contract, so my contract goes until the end of 2025.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that renewable?
That's up to the board of directors. So we've got 5 board of directors, and they're the ones that make that decision. So conceivably it could be, but we'll see.
I hope so.
Well, best of luck. I'm stoked you're here. Neil, what do we got?
You're, next week, and you can be gone.
Yeah,
so who
okay.
knows?
Well, once again, all you folks that tuned in on Santa Cruz Waves, Tyler Fox, thanks for letting us be here. Hope you guys had a great show.
That website one more time is?
Yeah.
centralfiresc.org.
There you go.
Anybody interested in possibly being a paid call, check that out, because it could turn into a career, just like it did for many people on the force. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Great show tonight. As always, I know you could be somewhere else, but you tuned in here, so we appreciate that. Neil, we'll see you soon.
Okay, bye.
All right.